Good morning, my name is Elisa Akhtar and my project investigates the timing-dependent effects of resveratrol on ethanol and diabetes-induced developmental deficits in Drosophila and Melanogaster. Fetal alcohol spectrum disorders affect 1 in 20 U.S. children, the most common preventable developmental disability. Gestational diabetes complicates 2 to 10% pregnancies, and 10% of women consume alcohol. Critically, some women have both conditions concurrently. Prenatal alcohol causes structural brain damage, corpus callosum thinning, microcephaly, abnormal cortical development, leading to lifelong deficits. Despite extensive research on FASD and diabetes separately, no studies examine their combined interaction during fetal development. This represents a critical gap in prenatal health research. We're advising millions of at-risk pregnancies and an estimated 69% of diabetic mothers consume alcohol without understanding how these conditions interact in the developing fetus. Does combined oxidative stress overwhelm protective systems in ways neither stressor alone predicts? And critically, when should we intervene? During development or after birth? Answering these questions is a public health emergency. I will answer 3 fundamental questions. First, how do prenatal ethanol exposure and diabetic conditions interact? Are their effects additive or synergistic? Second, while resveratrol shows promise in separately protecting against ethanol-induced and diabetes-related damage, its efficacy against combined stressor conditions has never been tested. Third, does prevention during developmental provide superior protection compared to intervention after birth? I used Drosophila melanogaster for its 75% genetic homology with humans, conserved insulin signaling pathways, validated FASD phenotypes, and rapid 14-day development enabling systematic timing-dependent protection analysis. 5 treatment groups were tested: control ethanol only, maternal resveratrol, postnatal resveratrol after eclosion, and combined treatment. Diabetic conditions were modeled through 10% sucrose diet, prenatal ethanol exposure during the L3 larval stage when ethanol induces metabolic and brain deficits, mirroring human FASD. Resveratrol 100 micromolar was administered via dietary supplementation during the specified windows. Maternal treatment from days 5 to 8 during larval development, postnatal treatment from days 14 to 18 after eclosion, or both. I assessed 4 outcomes measures spanning development, metabolism, motor function, and cognition. Eclosion timing as developmental rate, oxygen consumption as mitochondrial function, negative geotaxis climbing assay as locomotor coordination, and food-seeking index integrating the motivational and cognitive performance. Locomotor results reveal the clear synergistic toxicity. Ethanol caused 16.4% impairment in non-diabetic flies, but 23.6% in diabetic flies. 43% worse than predicted by an additive model, demonstrating multiplicative neuromuscular damage. Maternal resveratrol completely restored locomotor function to control levels. Postnatal treatment left diabetic flies significantly below control levels, proving structural neurodevelopment has an irreversible critical period. Adult intervention cannot remodel abnormal circuits. Ethanol exposure significantly delayed eclosion by 3.2 to 3.4 days. That's a 33% increase, consistent across diabetic status, indicating developmental toxicity operates independently of glucose metabolism. Diabetic conditions did not significantly alter developmental rate. Controls eclipsed only 0.12 days later than non-diabetics, suggesting that hyperglycemic models impact adult metabolism more than larval development. All resveratrol interventions accelerated development, but postnatal resveratrol outperformed maternal treatment, producing eclosion 2.45 days faster and 18% acceleration. This significant late-stage resveratrol enhances metamorphic efficiency without early exposure costs. For metabolic function, the story is strikingly different. Combined ethanol and diabetes reduced respiration by 33%, representing multiplicative impairment. Diabetes alone reduced respiration 29%, ethanol alone 19%, but together they produce a 33% deficit, confirming my hypothesis for compounding metabolic damage. Critically, combined maternal postnatal resveratrol treatment achieved the greatest protection, with postnatal intervention accelerating maturation through morphological developmental stages. However, no intervention fully restored respiration to control levels, indicating persistent mitochondrial dysfunction despite intervention. For cognitive motivational function, measured through food-seeking behavior, combined ethanol and diabetics reduced performance by 23%, partially additive effects suggesting overlapping mechanisms through shared insulin signaling disruption. Combined treatment improved food-seeking index by 14.3% in diabetic flies significantly, the only regimen achieving statistically significant improvement over diabetic controls. This pattern distinguishes food-seeking from other measures, suggesting a sustained antioxidant exposure may be necessary for complex behaviors under metabolic stress that is chronic. Maternal resveratrol during the L3 larval stage protects developing neural circuits, preserving mitochondrial biogenesis and maintaining insulin signaling. This produces optimal locomotor protection because structural brain development occurs during this critical window. Once closed, structural damage becomes permanent. Postnatal resveratrol accelerates maturation and enhances metabolic recovery, explaining the fastest eclosion in respiratory improvements. However, it provides only partial neural repair because adult antioxidants cannot rebuild circuits after structural development completes. My results confirm all three hypotheses with system-specific patterns. Combined exposure produces the clearest synergy in locomotor performance, 43% multiplicative worsening, suggesting metabolic dysfunction amplifies ethanol neurotoxicity beyond what either stressor produces alone. For respiratory function, effects were near additive at 33%, indicating largely independent mechanisms. Ethanol disrupts developmental mitochondrial biogenesis, while diabetes impairs adult respiratory chain efficiency. Separate temporal windows, separate mechanisms. Food-seeking deficits were subadditive at 23%, revealing shared bottlenecks where both conditions converge on insulin PI3K AKT signaling, limiting combined impact magnitude. Hypothesis 3 was strongly confirmed. Resveratrol efficacy is context-dependent. Treatment benefits scale with oxidative stress severity. Diabetic ethanol-exposed flies show 17.4% respiratory improvement, while healthy flies receive minimal benefit. No resveratrol treatment fully restored function. Respiratory deficits persisted 12 to 20 below baseline. Food-seeking 12 to 16 below controls, revealing resveratrol's limitations. The study provides first evidence that prenatal ethanol and maternal diabetes interact synergistically, with multiplicative effects on motor function and partially additive effects on metabolism and cognition. Resveratrol protection is timing dependent. Maternal treatment provides complete locomotor restoration through neuroprotection, while postnatal treatment enhances metabolic recovery. Combined treatment recovers 91% on respiratory deficits. Incomplete recovery indicates combination therapies are needed. Future work should test resveratrol plus neurotrophic factors and examine molecular functions. This establishes that therapeutic timing is as critical as drug selection for developmental stage-specific interventions in at-risk pregnancies. Thank you.